Hey everyone, I'm fired up to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, and that's finding extremely cheap flights with my favorite flight service, Google Flight. And today I'm going to show you my exact process for how I book extremely cheap flights for domestic and international. I'm also going to share with you some of these intermediate and advanced features of Google Flights that you might not have been aware of before using it. So you're going to want to stick around to the very end because I'm going to show you my favorite feature for finding cheap flights with Google Flights. So I'm going to switch over to screen share on my laptop. So let's go ahead and dig right into finding cheap flights with Google Flights. Hey everyone, so if you're looking to learn how to use Google Flights, you're in for a real treat. Google controls around 90% of internet searches, and they have a real competitive advantage for their flight searching as well. Because they have so much data, they have the systems built up to make a really great platform. Essentially, Google has created one of the best flight searching platforms by far. So if you haven't familiarized yourself, I'm going to walk through some of the basic features of Google Flights, how to essentially use it, and then I'm going to show you my process to book cheap flights. So getting started off, you're going to essentially put in what locations you want to go from where to where. So let's say a lot of you are probably from the United States, so I'll go ahead and pick my hometown of St. Louis, Missouri. Not the best hub in the US, but still pretty decent because it's in the middle. And essentially, let's say we want to go somewhere in Europe. I don't know where I want to go. I just want to get to Europe for as cheap as possible. So normally what I'll do is I'll start by looking at the continent. Instead of just picking a city like Paris or London or something like that, I just want to get to Europe. And once you're there, flights are extremely cheap. So if you fly into Paris or London, you can easily get flights for $50, $60 to other locations around Europe. So this is a great example to start off. And let's just go ahead and pick our dates. Let's say we want to go right around shoulder season of the summer. Shoulder season is usually, April to the beginning of May. So let's go ahead and choose April 10th through the 24th. And this brings up one of the best features of Google Flights is it's going to show us exactly what are the cheapest locations to get to. And one thing you're noticing, because I'm based overseas in Tbilisi, is it's actually showing the local currency of Lari. So we're going to want to change this to US dollars. And you can actually, a pro tip here is if you know there's a really good exchange rate, a lot of times it's going to be cheaper to actually book in Lari because the US dollar is a lot stronger. So you can use your credit card, your US credit card, to book in a foreign currency, and you can actually save a lot of money. The reason behind this is because a lot of flight companies don't fluctuate their prices as often as currencies fluctuate. So for this example, I'm going to stick with US dollars, and we're going to see what locations kind of pop up for us to get from St. Louis all the way over to Europe. And essentially, we're just looking for one of the cheapest ones. And looks like maybe Lisbon would be one of the cheapest spots. But let's just go ahead and click on that. So this is a round trip flight, 2 stops for 31 hours. That's not great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to view the flights. And I'm going to essentially utilize the date grid and the price graph. These two features are essential for finding cheap flights. And it's going to show us the cheapest dates for the whole time. Flight prices right now are kind of all over the place because of COVID. There's a really weird mix of supply and demand. So let's go ahead and see which dates are going to be the best. Looks like this is going to be 603. And then you can choose this next one. So 603 for your departure date. And there we have it. 1 stop, 2-hour layover. This is much better than that previous example. So you can see how we went from saving around $70, $80 just by choosing the dates. Now, if you want to get really great, you can also check the price graph. And this is going to be great for showing you the whole timeline of flights, what Google is anticipating for flights, and what essentially flights are going to be priced out right now. I would say normally the best time to book a flight is around 3 months out from when you want to go overseas. So 603 round trip flights over to Europe, pretty good good price, $300 per one way, so $600 total. And it's not on some terrible airline. It's on United, which is a fantastic airline, and only one stop. You'll have a layover. So essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to book, and again, it's giving you some options for this 603 price. You can book on Air Canada, Lufthansa, but what I highly recommend doing is just making it simple, book directly with the airline, and then you'll go ahead and get this $608 flight. So one of the really cool things, so let's say I found this flight and I wanted to just make sure that essentially I get notified. And what you can do is you can actually sign into Google and a notification icon will appear here. Let me just go ahead and sign in. One of the great features, and I love to do this, is let's say you're like 4 or 5 months out and you're wanting to go ahead and track the prices. So I can go ahead and click this switch here, and you'll essentially receive an email anytime this price fluctuates. So if it goes up or down, I'm going to get a notice about whether the flight price has changed. So this is one of the great features, and I highly recommend you utilizing this. So down here it gives you the booking options. Essentially, I would always recommend booking directly with United. Even if you're going to save $20, it's just not worth it to use a third party unless it's a huge amount of savings. So essentially what you can do is just book directly through United. Google will take you over there, and then you'll be able to sign into United and book this flight. But yeah, here's our flight, $615 total round trip. A pretty decent flight, but depending on what location you're flying from, if you're anywhere on the coast, I guarantee you're gonna find some cheaper stuff. So let's go ahead and dig into another option. Let's just go back here and let's change our location from New York. So you can already see there's some nonstop flights with United. It's a lot cheaper. But again, we can use the same strategy by looking at the dates, figuring out when the cheapest time to go is. It looks like $495 is a pretty good price. Round trip flight over to Europe. Once you get to Lisbon, you can explore Portugal for a while, and then you can get a cheap flight back. The other option is, if you want to get into the advanced features, is I love doing this, and it's essentially utilizing these filtering options. So let's say I prefer limiting my stops. I have status on American or United. You can just select the airlines here. You can also do the pricing, carry-on bags, what price you want to filter at, the times, what times you want to leave, any connecting airports, the duration. Let's say you never want it to be more than a certain time period. And then lastly, you can have separate tickets. But again, one of the features that I want to also touch on is you can check premium economy, business, first class here. And then a great option is doing a multi-city. So let's say you want to fly into Lisbon, but you want to go around and explore Europe for a while. Let's say you want to fly back from London or something. You want to go to Lisbon, check it out, and then go to Spain, Paris, and then your final destination will be in London. So you're going to spend 2 weeks around Europe, and you'll be amazed by how much money you can save by utilizing this multi-city technique. This is my favorite technique to save money and to find cheap flights. So you can see here, we've almost saved around more than $100 just by changing our final destination. So I recommend, if you're going to be flying over to Europe and exploring, try to use this multi-city technique to really decrease your expenses for finding cheap flights. So essentially, this is a $376 flight from New York to Lisbon, and then 2 weeks later, you're going to be flying back from London to New York. This is on United. It's a great airline. Again, this isn't a discount airline. You're going to get the full service, and this is one of my favorite techniques to find cheap flights. And again, if you're wanting to learn more about finding cheap flights, how to travel hack, and how to essentially get free flights by utilizing points and miles, I'm going to leave some information below in the description about my travel hacking masterclass that teaches you every technique that I've learned over the past 10 years to earn more than $150,000 in free travel. And it's how I've been able to visit more than 85 different countries around the world. So I'll leave some details on that below in the description. You're going to want to check that out. And again, if you made it this far, please consider subscribing. I'm releasing 2 new videos every week. And thanks so much for your time. Feel free to give this a like and share where's your dream destination. Where do you want to travel when travel starts opening back up? I'd be curious to know, and I'll be hanging out in the comments waiting for your response.